there are a very few occasions for unbridled joy, and marriage is one of them. Not just getting married, but being married. Today we have cause for unbridled joy. Today is unbounded joy. You're getting married, and the being married is seeing good for the hard work that you'll do going forward. So far, so good. And today we emphasize so good, because there are a few things in your life up to this point, or things that will follow in your life together to come, that will eclipse the joy that you feel today. And thank you for inviting us to be a part of this, Rick and Shimada. We appreciate being able to share this with you. Now, the crowd knows you fairly well, to a greater or to a lesser degree. We have friends and family you're surrounded by. And of course, your friends and family know you have agreed that the God of the Bible, Jehovah, and His Word has guided your life to now and made it happy. And you have agreed that His standards will guide your life going forward. Now, that may seem like an oversimplification, but many scriptures seem oversimplified too. For example, male and female, He created them. It sounds so simple, and yet how profound is that statement today when the roles of gender, the definition of masculinity and femininity have been blurred and debated in contradictory ways. So to have the scriptures as your standard, Rick, what defines how a man is? And Shimada, what is a woman? What is a lady? Having the Bible as your standard, up to now, it's made you happy. And as you go forward, adhering to those standards will continue to make you happy. So you're both linguists. You've both been surrounded by language, sometimes deliberately, sometimes as a matter of circumstance. And looking at this crowd this afternoon actually changed our discussion that we're going to have. So for whatever I lack in polish, hopefully it will be made up for in custom-made, tailor-made, because we have such an international scope to our audience today. And that's a testimony to the two of you. Your unbiased love for Jehovah and the way He helps you to see your fellow man, both friends and family. So we'll look at some scriptures maybe that you haven't looked at in the same way, because here's the thing. You look at the Bible as an individual, but now as the two of you are coupled, you will see it differently from now on. You will see the scriptures through each other's eyes, and it's a prettier picture. So when we think of this ceremony, a little bit of pomp and circumstance, certainly easy on the eyes. There is, of course, a secular and a civil aspect to a marriage or a wedding. Shimada, you change your name today. That's a legal process, right? Obviously, there's the social aspect of a marriage. There is the romantic element. No need to elaborate there. But there's also, and you've agreed on this, there's a sacredness to marriage. And so we'll just take a few minutes. We'll just look at a couple of examples, a couple of scriptures that you may know very well. But as we look at them, as you look at them through each other's eyes, hopefully you'll see them a bit differently in this new role that you're now embracing together. So if you'd like, we'd like to open our discussion to, surprisingly, almost ironically, to the Song of Solomon. Romantic, to be sure, but when you think about it, would Solomon really be a good basis to go to for exclusive devotion, monogamy? Solomon had a lot of women, right? But as we look at this, let's consider the limits of this English language of ours. Now, it's a nice, big, broad, fat vocabulary that we have in English, but it fails in one word, and that's the word love. Because even the ancient Greeks had 4 different words for love, right? You know this very well. And what's interesting is the 4 different words for love in the ancient Greek language, marriage is the only union that incorporates all 4 elements. So the agape, unselfish, love thy neighbor. Rick is your closest neighbor now, Shimada. Storge, that's the family love where they get the myth that the stork brings the baby because storks are very family oriented. She is now your next of kin, Rick, your closest living relative. Philia, the fondness of friendship. Rick is your best friend, Shimada. Maybe even before you started to see him in the 4th type of love, the eros, or the romantic type of love. So it's only marriage that incorporates all 4 of these. Your neighbor, your next of kin, your closest relative, and your lover. So this is truly, it's no wonder they call it the bonds of matrimony. Now, as we look at Song of Solomon, there's an acknowledgement that we have to make. And you'll find it in Shimada, these could be your words. So if you look at Solomon 1, see if it's familiar. Chapter 1 and verse 5, what does she say about herself? We know that she was extraordinarily beautiful, but she was a lot more than that. She was also modest. As she says in verse 5, I am dark. You see the footnote there, Rick? I don't know if your hand is shaking, but the footnote says, I'm black, but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem. Now, did you know that was in there? Like the tents of Kedar, keep reading. Now, those goats in Kedar, now Shulam, and Shunem, that was an agricultural area of Palestine. And the goats were known for an onyx black, a beautiful black coat, like the tent cloths of Solomon. And she says, do not stare at me because I'm swarthy, because my skin is dark, because the sun has gazed upon me. So in this instance, if the Shulamite's parents were both Jewish, her skin would not naturally have been dark. So it was evidently not an ethnic description of her. It was more of an economic, because this girl worked outdoors. She was a country girl. She was a worker. Now, for whatever reason people notice your skin tone, sometimes there's good reasons, sometimes there's no reason, sometimes it's not a good reason. She was pretty, but she was a lot more than that. And Solomon was crazy about her. So if you read the rest of this book, we won't do that to you today, but if you read the rest of this book, you'll see it differently now that the 2 of you are united. Because Solomon had designs on this pretty girl, and he wowed her, and he courted her. He said, I can give you everything. And she said, well, I want more. She didn't want everything. She wanted an undivided, exclusive love. So, Rick, you have found a girl that's not only pretty, but she's a lot more than that. So maybe you'll see this book a little bit differently. In a way, it's a comfort, because you don't have to be an economic powerhouse to get the girl. Isn't that a comfort? Yeah. And at this point, Solomon already had about 140 women in his life. At the end, he'd have, how many? 1,000? But could he give an undivided attention to any of them? And that love was not exclusive. And so his life was not happy as a result. And as smart as he was, as wise as he was, all the advantages that he had, he didn't have Jehovah's view on monogamy. And it was detrimental to his outlook. So there's just one scripture, one little verse that maybe looks a little bit differently to you now. Can we give you one more example? Again, Solomon. Ironically, Solomon. And we'll go over to Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Now, those of you who are Jehovah's Witnesses may be very surprised to hear us make any reference to Ecclesiastes 9. Because when we normally open the book to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, we're looking at comfort for those who are grieving, because it tells about the condition of the dead. Well, and Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 5, it says there's no reason to be in fear of the dead, that they're resting, they're not suffering. Verse 10 makes the same point. Why are we bringing this up? This is not a joy kill. This is what's interesting. Right in between verse 5 and verse 10, we're going to look at verse 9 and see what you make of this, Rick. Shimada as well. But this is for Rick. The Song of Solomon was for Shimada. Rick, this one's for you. And this is our advice, our scriptural admonition. Enjoy life with your beloved wife all the days of your futile life. Now he says futile because Solomon had recognized at this point that a great many endeavors in life are not worthwhile. There's a lot of frustration. There's a great deal of grief. There's morbidity. There's mortality. There are a very few occasions for unbridled joy, and marriage is one of them. Not just getting married, but being married. All the days of your life under the sun, for that is your lot in life, and in your hard work at which you toil under the sun. So whatever else you do now going forward, you may have jobs, may have work that seems mundane, doesn't feel worthwhile, but if it's for the two of you, you're glad to do it. Because this is very much of the reward of the hard work that you do. So you'll find this, whatever sorrow or joy you go through from henceforth, you'll do it together. Whatever happens to him happens to you, Shimada. Whatever happens to her, it happens to you. That includes both grief and joy, as long as we're in this system of things. But today we have cause for unbridled joy. Today is unbounded joy. You're getting married, and the being married is seeing good for the hard work that you'll do going forward. Now we'll stop there. That's enough expounding on the scriptures. But we have some notes from the Song of Solomon. It's almost ironic that we took our message today from King Solomon, who was so much wed. But when you think about it, with 1,000 women in his life, who's the only one he wrote a song for? It was the one he didn't get. And the one that he didn't get was in love with one. And the one she got was in love with her. So there we have it. Wise words from the scriptures, and hopefully just a good example of how the scriptures will take on a different and hopefully richer and deeper meaning for you as you go forward in your life. Rick, we're almost to the kissing part, so you can rejoice. So we are to that point in our ceremony today. We're going to start the civil and the secular aspect of our ceremony now that we've covered the sacred. And so we'll ask our wedding party to stand to the business at hand. And we'll start with Rick. Do you, Richard Lowry, in the presence of Jehovah God and these witnesses, take Shimada Bryant to be your wedded wife, to love and to cherish, in accordance with the divine law as outlined in the Holy Scriptures for Christian husbands, for as long as you both may live?
I do.
Do you, Shimada Bryant, in the presence of Jehovah God and these witnesses, take Richard Lowry to be your wedded husband, to love and to cherish and to deeply respect, in accordance with the divine law as outlined in the Holy Scriptures for Christian wives, for as long as you both will live?
I do.
All right. According to Western custom, we'll ask at this time if there's anyone that gives this woman to be married to this man.
I do.
All right. All right, Rick, if you wouldn't mind repeating after me, these are your vows. I, Richard Lowry, take you, Shimada Bryant, to be my wedded wife.
I, Richard Lowry, take you, Shimada Bryant, to be my wedded wife.
To love and to cherish in accordance with the divine law.
To love and to cherish in accordance with the divine law.
As set forth in the Holy Scriptures for Christian husbands.
As set forth in the Holy Scriptures for Christian husbands.
For as long as we both shall live together on earth.
For as long as we both shall live together on earth.
according to God's marital arrangement.
According to God's marital arrangement.
Flawless. He won't do that good every day, Shimada. Realistic expectations. Okay. I, Shimada Bryant, take you, Richard Lowry, to be my wedded husband.
I, Shimada Bryant, take Richard Lowry to be my wedded husband.
To love and to cherish and deeply respect.
To love and to cherish and deeply respect.
In accordance with the divine law.
In accordance with the divine law.
As set forth in the Holy Scriptures for Christian wives.
As set forth in the Holy Scriptures for Christian wives.
For as long as we both shall live together on earth.
For as long as we both shall live together on earth.
According to God's marital arrangement.
According to God's marital arrangement.
Very good. Are there rings that you want to exchange today? I thought it was a rhetorical question. So again, Western and some other customs help us to understand that the rings are merely an outward and visible sign that signify unto all the uniting of this man and this woman in the bonds of matrimony. Now, for as much as Richard and Shimada have covenanted before Jehovah God and these witnesses to accept each other in wedlock, I, as an ordained minister and by the authority conferred upon me by the Holy Scriptures and the state of California, pronounce that they are husband and wife together. What God has yoked together, let no man put apart. So at this point, we'd like to say a prayer for you. So it's my pleasure to introduce to this marriage gathering Mr. and Mrs. Richard and Shimada Lowry. Rick, kiss your bride.